our government is deliberately blind to various things that go on. They know it's happening. They won't admit it.
Yeah, so I pontificate whilst I'm on walks and things like that. And it just occurred to me how our government addresses pure symptomatic elements as opposed to the root cause. I mean, there's many, many reasons why. I'm sure it's more of a conversation than anything else. We can sort of discuss why, but there's a whole host of examples that we've got. I mean, we had the atrocity. I'll call it an atrocity. I think it is in Southport, and their response was the knife did it.
I can't get cutlery off Amazon anymore.
The knife did it, and we all saw the coordinated headlines. I actually couldn't. I didn't find them for this, but the coordinated headlines. One of them was quite literally the Amazon stabber.
Yeah, the Amazon.
You're like, sorry, what?
Yeah, how's Amazon got anything to do with this? Explain that to me.
Utter drivel.
Well, the answer is he ordered the knife off of Amazon.
I know.
Yeah, so government's response, which we see here, direct from their website, was stricter age verification checks for all knife retailers. And you're like, right, that's the response. I mean, that is the response, is it?
The response is to render these people harmless and instead of making them virtuous.
Because there's definitely not, millions of kitchen knives already out there anyway.
And just, come on.
Purely symptomatic. And there's the next link there, Amazon driver. I mean, we talk about this strict age verification. Well, how's that going to... The Amazon driver handed the knife to someone that was visibly over 25 anyway. So...
Yep. Yeah. And even then, okay, let's assume that every sharp and bladed implement in the country is kept away from young people. Do they not realise that you can kill someone with a blunt instrument as well?
Well, I heard from...
cricket bats, just baseball bats, everything. Like, why don't we just lock them all up in padded cells so they can't hurt each other?
Well, if there was you've got to be 18, he could have just waited a few months until he was 18. It's just complete nonsense on many, many levels, isn't it?
Yeah.
And if prison shivings have taught us anything, you can sharpen a bloody toothbrush.
Bit of plastic.
You can make one out of almost anything. You can sharpen the side of a credit card.
Break a bottle.
Yeah, right.
Break, you can break a bit of glass. You've got an unbelievably sharp cutting edge. Like, it's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
Absolutely.
And I think you're absolutely right, but it's very, very deliberate blindness, isn't it? It's very, very deliberate obfuscation of it. It's very, very deliberate. It's not accidentally that they're missing the point, is it? No,
it's absolutely on purpose. And there's so many more examples of this. So you chucked one in here, didn't you, Bo? This next one, this Idris Elba. If we make kitchen knives, what was that quote? Just scroll up a little bit. No, sorry. If we make kitchen knives without points, we can solve the black stabbing epidemic. Also, Idris Elba. It's like, this is just
like a cleaver. Cleaver hasn't got a point on it, so they're safe.
Oh yeah, could never kill someone with a cleaver, bro.
Just purposely ignorant to everything. And it extends way past just this sort of situation. We've got now in the UK, the next link there, the fertility rate. Fertility rate in England and Wales, drops to a new low. Absolutely awful. That's terrible.
You would think it was concerning to people who want to pay pensions in the future.
Yeah, you'd think it would be concerning to politicians, actually, that the majority of your taxpayers by ethnicity, because there is a pattern with the amount of people that pay tax in this country. Not that we can notice that. We're not allowed to notice that, okay?
The government statistics definitely bear it out, though.
There's definitely not failed counties in the UK where there's majority certain ethnicities that definitely is... Anyway, we won't talk about that. We're not allowed to talk about that. So fertility rate is obviously tanking, and it is all across the Western world. And rather than addressing... this
not even just the Western world either. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
Every developed nation.
Yeah, exactly. And it's... the symptomatic element of governments is not unique to the UK, but what are they going to do with the next link?
People only listening to it.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah.
UK be reliant on immigration for nearly 80 years due to falling birth rates.
Amazing.
Just pause on that. UK will be reliant on immigration. It's like, hang on a second. UK. What do they even mean when they're saying that? What they're saying is there is a collection of institutions which will rely on immigration because the native British people are not replicating enough. And so the institution of the pensions, the institution of the NHS, the institution of like the benefit system, these things will rely on foreign labour to prop them up. Otherwise, they will collapse. It's like,
yeah.
I don't want to be the guy who has to voice the unpopular opinion, but if it can't be sustained by the British population, maybe we shouldn't have it.
Yeah.
We need to think about the settlement of the 20th century because we're living in a different country now, and these things are not perpetual.
Yeah, I mean, you could do. I've spoken on Twitter about how it's utter nonsense that we keep importing millions upon millions of individuals without recognising, that as a policy is utter insanity anyway. Remove it from the fertility rate issue, but it's absolute insanity whilst also still trying to go for net zero. These two things don't align. They're completely opposed to one another.
It also doesn't
there's
work.
There's just no critical thinking skills.
On its own terms, it doesn't work because we know that the first generation carry on as they were in the home country.
Yep.
The second and third generations also have fewer kids. So we become kind of like a black hole for lineages.
Yeah.
If your children move to the UK, well, you won't get your grandchildren, actually, right?
Yeah.
And eventually, that means we just need to import more and more people. And so this is where literally like bloodlines go to die.
Ponzi scheme of immigration.
Just to keep these institutions going. It's like, I'm not that committed to the institutions.
Yeah. And... Oh, no.
Having the combination of effectively open borders and a welfare state, a very generous welfare state, the net result of that just equals national suicide.
Yes, 100%.
And the broader point you were making, I think, is the one that they won't address, is why is fertility or reproduction rates so low?
Yeah.
Like, what is the general malaise in society that causes that? It's like there's all sorts of things, like the number of mass killings in schools in America, for example.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be around the guns, whether they've got a bump stock or not, or how big the magazine is. No, what is it in the society that causes some 16-year-old to want to go and shoot up his school? Well, that is too difficult and too dark and too telling to address that properly in the full light of day. So we just won't.
Yeah, that is the broader point to this as a topic here. I mean, the NHS for the future, that's something that they want to do. Build an NHS fit for the future. But how? By just dumping more and more money into it. Okay,
there's no limit to the number of African nurses we can hire.
Amazing, those fake degrees that they've got.
Totally legit doctorates.
Brilliant. But and again, the next one, UK's considering charging Netflix, and this is obviously somewhat trivial by comparison, but this is how trivial the government actually is about everything and how they treat us. The UK, for those that are not watching and just listening, UK is considering charging Netflix users the TV license fee for the BBC. Right. Why don't you address why people are not watching the BBC?
Yeah.
Why don't you
pay for it at least?
Exactly. Why don't they want to pay for it? Why trying to build an NHS fit for the future? How is this money being spent? Why is this money being poured down the drain effectively? Yeah. Why are the birth rates not happening? And this is because they've dumbed the population down so far. They've indoctrinated them so well with all the nonsense and propaganda. BBC's part of that. That's why people are switching off. Rather than addressing, because people are not ready for those hard conversations, and that's effectively what this is the point to this whole segment here, is that no government in the UK wants to have and it would be a really hard national conversation, right? The NHS, it's not fit for purpose. It cannot be an endless black hole. Yeah, not everyone's going to like this take, obviously, but it's like the 17th biggest employer in the world, or the 7th, one of the two.
It's the 7th.
That's mental.
7th. It's below, just below like the Chinese army.
That is stupidity.
Yeah.
Right?
The NHS is over 1 million employees.
Completely unsustainable.
Exactly.
Absolutely unsustainable.
It has to be torn down and rebuilt.
I mean, it's literally like something like 6% of the country works for the NHS.
Yeah. It needs to be torn down and rebuilt. the birth rates. Okay, well, you can't keep importing people when you haven't built the houses for the people that you've already imported over the last decade. And then we've got the new figures, which I didn't include here. We're going to increase by like 5 million in the next couple of years or something like that. Well, where are they going to go? What's the infrastructure for them?
This is the issue.
Purely symptomatic.
This is the issue. What Britain is suffering from is we have a series of legacy institutions from the 20th century, right? The pension system, the NHS, the BBC, various other things that we expect to be able to maintain when we were a country that had a global empire, which was when all of these things were founded, and had the wealth of being essentially the center of the world. Since then, we have transitioned out of the empire and found ourselves not as the center of the world. Actually, money and talent doesn't just flow here automatically.
And we had a homogenous society and a manageable population at the time. And those things, and now we don't live in that world anymore.
A growing population, right?
Yeah.
So when the NHS was founded, there wasn't publicly available birth control.
Yeah.
Right? When the pension system was instituted, there wasn't publicly available birth control. But if you give women the option of having easily accessible, publicly available birth control, well, they stop having as many children as you expected. So now that means the pension system, we either have to revisit it or admit that we're going to have to replace our entire... We're just going to have to cram millions and millions and millions of foreigners in here to pay for a bunch of boomers who had promises made to them. Yeah. And I'm sorry, I'm not up for that, actually.
Well, again, Rachel from Accounts has been doing the rounds because yesterday, I love that. I love it. It's so accurate as well. Yeah. She was doing the rounds yesterday because she did a speech for economic growth. It's our number one thing. We're going to do economic growth.
That's why I raise your taxes. Well,
so this is the point, right? So again, a prime example of a symptomatic government not prepared for the very, very hard conversations. They're like, right, sorry, I've got to raise your taxes. Why? To pay for all these public services. Right. Okay. So the current population at the current tax rate actually doesn't fund the public services, right? That's the implication.
Yeah,
okay. But you're still going to import millions upon millions of people, right? Well, what's that going to do to the public services, you dullard?
Well, it's going to make them worse. It's going to make them overcrowded, difficult to use, and it's going to increase the wear and tear on them. So they fail sooner, which will cost us more money sooner. So
loads and loads of councils up and down the country are in the red to the tune of millions and millions and millions.
Well, Birmingham just went bankrupt.
Right.
That's another...
Oh, but we're just going to cram hundreds of thousands of more people year after year into it.
What they're going to be doing... and again, didn't include it in this, but just topically off the top of my head, they want to increase council tax by 25%. Those areas that they want to do some of that, well, they're doing that because they're not earning enough, because the amount of people that are on benefits in those particular regions, definitely not linked to any patterns there.
Can't notice that.
Not allowed to notice that. They can't fund themselves. They can't sustain themselves.
In 2022, Swindon Town Council sent us a breakdown of how the council tax is spent. 80% of it is redistribution.
It's absolute
80%. And it's just like, sorry, I don't agree with this.
We never wanted that. We never voted for that type of governance and society.
No one's ever asked for this.
I think the broader point you're making is an extremely important one. Really, really important one. I mean, among the most important issues and questions of our day is the ability, politically, to look with clear eyes at the real problems. Yeah. I mean, least of all, sort of like the Islamification of Britain. Yeah. Or the scourge of rape gangs, or the balkanisation of Britain. It's not just Islam. Yeah. The balkanisation of Britain all over, and not just Britain, also all sorts of other countries Ireland, in the West, in the Anglosphere, just to not address the real issues of that, just to constantly either paper over it, lie about it by omission, or just misdirection. Springs to mind Peter Hitchens talking about Southport had something to do with marijuana. There's no evidence for that one way or another, I don't think. No, or then he went on to say on Twitter that all knife crime or something there's a massive correlation.
Definitely.
It's just...
Don't get me wrong, Peter, I'm against young people smoking weed too, but I don't think that's the reason.
Yeah, I'm not some massive pro-weed advocate. I'm just saying you're missing the point.
Yeah.
Like, what about the Josh has talked about it a number of times, just the noticing the stats. between certain types of people and communities and violent crime.
You're not allowed.
Don't notice that. It's something to do with Amazon and Bezos and the knife itself and marijuana. It's what anything other than looking with clear eyes and being honest, painfully honest, about the real causes of these things. And the point you're making, I think, is, as I say, I don't think I'm exaggerating to say it's one of the most important things. It's the thing we've got to grapple with.
Well, this is
We've got to stop being scared of it.
Yeah, it's the reason we're in this position in the first place.
Right.
And it's the reason why Donald Trump is so incredibly popular right now, because he's gone, no, this is a problem, this is a problem, this is how we're going to fix it. Not, oh, we're just going to paper over that, it's fine, mate, don't worry about it.
Yeah, we'll just address the symptoms rather than the cause, and we can keep addressing the symptoms forever, presumably.
And if we had someone in the UK on the right that had actually had balls, because we don't, not anyone that's actually in power. Yeah. Rupert Lowe's doing a fantastic job. I'll give you that. Yeah. But no one that is on the precipice of power has balls.
None of the party leaders.
No, yeah, literally none of them. None of them at all. None of them at all. But if one of them had balls, if they could, look themselves in the mirror and actually go, oh no, I am, I've got some balls here, I've got some courage, they would be insanely popular. They'd be insanely popular. Yeah. They'd be unpopular with all the right people, but who cares? Who cares?
Yeah, Robert Peston would be peeved with them, wouldn't
James O'Brien's monologue.
The idea that if you talked about, say, like demographics at Destiny, and we're heading for a Balkanisation and the horrors of what happened in the Balkans in the 90s, you'd just be called, someone like Starmer, I'm sure, would just call you a far-right fantasist, just call you all the names under the sun, just a bigot, when in fact... You're just being truthful.
Yeah. So explain to me the riots in Leicester in 2022, Keir.
Yeah.
Well, that was over a cricket game.
Yeah, what were the Hindus?
It was about cricket. It was cricket fans. That's all it was.
It's not about cricket, yeah.
Nothing to do with religion and ethnicity.
Anyway, on that note, we'll leave that there for time purposes.
If you would like to watch the full uncut version that is also uncensored, head on over to lotuseaters.com to find out more.